Good afternoon, everybody. I'm sure we've been having a very engaging experience here. Like I said, my name is Oyedepo, and I hope to be um, taking a slightly different view to our social media conference today. I hope that probably you would take a few lessons from what I've got to say. You would understand and appreciate much better with the way the world is advancing, that we have now gone past the age of just doing things for the sake of doing them or just for economic reasons. There are a couple of things that are probably merged together to create a world of socio-economics, as it were. And I probably don't want to take this, this tip from the man called Eric Hofer, who has this to say. And I think this is, if you don't take anything away from my presentation this afternoon, I just want to advise you that probably you take note of this. It's gonna help you the way you engage your customers as well as your management with respect to social media strategy. And it is that in a time of drastic change, it is the learners who inherit the future. The learned usually find themselves equipped to live in a world that no longer exists. Now, you can never get to any stage in life when probably you think or you assume that you have known all that needs to be known. The whole concept of the philosophy behind this is to create a learning society or a learning organization, or also a learning professional, as it were, with whatever you do, whether you're in financial services or whatever kind of business. What, again, for me, it's also critical is to appreciate that a couple of organizations want to jump straight ahead into a social media strategy when they don't actually have a fundamental basic or framework, which is having a proper customer relationship or customer experience management strategy. For me, I count it no matter the kind of sophisticated automobile you have, there are few frameworks that are very basic to all automobiles. If it's going to be an automobile, it's going to run on 4 wheels minimum, at the minimum. You agree with me? Whether it's a 1960 Volkswagen or it's the 2014 BMW, it must run on a minimum of 4 wheels. So in terms of customer experience management, there are a few things that I probably find very critical for us to appreciate, and those are the 5 forces that Michael Porter, a very strong authority on strategy, has to say. And it has to do with the customers themselves, which is the very key factor when it comes to engaging them. You need to understand who these customers are, where they live, how they think, what means value to them. Because if you don't understand what means value to them, you cannot create value for them. Neither can you manage them the way they want to be managed. Because really, people don't buy products in terms of features and benefits. They buy feelings. So you've got to be able to understand and appreciate them properly. The other thing that is also very critical is the network of data for your organization. Whatever organization you're involved in, you need to understand where and how have you presented relevant information or data about your product and services. And this is not just only about social media. You will appreciate that, as has been said here emphatically, there are several other platforms of which social media is just one. There are several platforms, even the traditional face-to-face channel whereby we engage our customers, what kind of information and how detailed and how relevant are the information or data they are sending out across these particular platforms that you've provided. Other things that are also very critical, the third one is about the network of opinion. How do you measure feedbacks? How do you get to hear what your customers are saying, both internal customers as well as your actual customers outside? And who do you actually define the customers to be? Because sometimes we do not appreciate, we just generally use the word customers without really defining who these customers are. Sometimes we refer to refer to prospects, or in fact mere suspects, if you permit me to say in more detailed customer experience management plans as customers. People who don't have any information about, neither do we have any patronage from them, we refer to them as customers. These are mere suspects. But customers are those people or organizations that we have engaged at the level that we have relevant data about them, as well as some level of patronage. Then the fourth one that is very critical, it has to do with the character of your product and your brand as a company. And this is very critical. You will appreciate this better by the time I get further down in this whole as brief presentation. The last one is the direct experiences of your customers with your brand. How did you experience you as an organization across a face-to-face channel? Is it consistent with what they experience with their telephone conversations with your organization? Is it consistent with the way they experience you on social media? Will they rather do a self-service rather than talk to you on the social media? If there is no consistency across all these channels, if you're going to manage a proper multi-channel system for your organization, you're not going to experience as much success as you really desire, both as individual players or social media managers, or even as an organization at the strategic level. Now, I think that I'm pretty much I'm coming from a quite peculiar background, which is the retail banking. Banking is something that everybody public gets involved in one way or the other, maybe because you put your money somewhere. But let me also say very quickly that there's a sort of there's a thinking, and which is very critical because of the way technology is driving the way business has been done, that someday soon, or probably even already, we will no longer have the relevance for banks the way they have traditionally existed hitherto, but we will probably have continued need for financial services. So now, that implies that people will no longer have to go to one place to go and queue for a long time, just like you don't necessarily have to do now. As you're seated here, you probably could be wiring money from one place to the other. And for retail banks who actually deal with the low end, so to speak, of the market, not the wholesale, if probably I will use some other industry kind of language, you realize that convenience is one particular a key word that means a lot of value for your customers. Convenience also is not only in the delivery of your product and services, but also convenience in actually their ability to be able to dialogue or converse with your organization. And that is also where the social media, I'm just trying to give you the building and the foundations why social media is also critical to the retail banking industry. Now, you would also look at the evolution of the retail banking offerings. You realize that across the globe, the retail banking has actually evolved from the old traditional method, which is pretty much has a linear CRM structure, a customer relationship management structure, and mainly the mode of interaction with the banks those days used to be purely through the face-to-face branches. But now, recent developments have actually created a lot of other multi-channel opportunities through self-service, through mobile and all that. But more emerging, shall I say, requirements or public development now is the fact that there is going to be a near extension of the traditional branch operations kind of thing. People will migrate to the capability to be able to engage, buy products, open an account, get to buy a credit product, or some other kind of product, or get even financial advisory services off the traditional channels. Now, also, there's going to be less of dependence on the human the human resources that drive the local channels, the traditional branch channels, to more of technology. And there's going to be a convergence of both the e-commerce and mobile commerce. In Africa, where I come from, you realize that there is a lot of trust more in the physical money. People want to hold the money rather than have to do wired transfer in terms of electronic e-commerce, or probably use a mobile phone to actually transfer money. People get a lot of, they don't get to trust sometimes the platform on which some of these products are running. But I think with time and with consistency in investment by various retail banking, various retail banks, there is increased trust. And you would agree with me that a couple of Africans that are coming to Dubai, for example, to the UAE to buy, a large percentage of them actually, they come more with their cash than they do electronic transfer or mobile banking. But I think that if there is a proper understanding and appreciation of this need, I'm sure that the growing and the teeming population of people that are coming to UAE to do business will find, should I say, a kind of merger in, would like to say convergence in the offerings of their local banks with the banks that do exist here. I probably have seen a couple of ATMs here that recognizes some of the cards, that some of the retail banks in other parts of Africa who don't necessarily have presence in UAE, their cards are accepted here. Now, you also see, I mean, this is just also a similar, another way of seeing the evolution in the way retail banking is being done. We have migrated from mere branch services to electronic commerce, and apart from e-commerce, these things have also created the need, serious need, because virtually when you're doing mobile banking, for example, that requires, it runs basically on mobile devices and purely on mobile phones. For a couple of organizations probably who play in environments like in the African region, and also even in the UAE, you would find that there's some low-end or low-income people who are more or less like the unbanked. They don't actually have the kind of large funds that corporates and high net worth individuals do place in the banks. They have phones that are not necessarily sophisticated. Some of them probably are not internet enabled in some parts of Africa, but they use these mobile devices that are, but with improvement in the mobile technology, a couple of internet enabled phones are becoming a lot more affordable. So these people would rather probably tweet or engage your bank on Facebook rather than having to come physically or call your bank, because not many banks actually offer a toll-free interaction platform per se. Now, a couple of global trends in terms of retail banking channels and how they are appreciating, you would see from that analogy. This was a study that was done by the McKinsey Group, and they found out that, the online engagement is becoming increasingly appreciated, between the space of 2008 and 2012. This also, in terms of adoption rates, by adoption rate, I'm looking at the various sectors that probably are adopting the social media. You would also appreciate so that you would see the need and the opportunities beyond the retail banking or the financial services industry. You realize that, the telecoms, for understandable reasons, they are seriously driving these, as well as the financial services industry, the high-tech and software industry. They probably represent almost like 50% of the pie, so to speak, of the social media. But there are huge opportunities also in various other sectors. We may have seated amongst us here, we had a presentation from the other doctor who was talking about how he was using social media to actually drive political campaigns and all of that. We could also have, social media strategies for the educational sector. A lot of concerns about teens and preteens and the various schools, and parents who are bothered about how the children are probably using social media maybe for different cultural, religious, and maybe moral reasons. You could actually use your whatever capacity you've got to drive strategies in the social media in these particular areas. Well, you could also see here, this is a study by DMG in the US. They probably found out a couple of things that organizations use social media to achieve. And you realize that the largest, maybe the top three essence or public purpose for which social media is being adopted by most organizations revolve around marketing, sales of, product sales, customer service, and then corporate communications, to, also, or maybe public relations. Maybe the next one, public contact center and all that. Then a few things, the scope of the kind of engagement that come on the social media platform. The scope probably revolve around maybe managing positive or negative sentiment from your target audience or target customers, issues with products and services. Sometimes when marketing actually does a product campaign, sometimes if there's appropriate structures are not put in place to manage complaints and inquiries that come across any channel that the customers actually may choose, not where you want them to choose. Because really, Todd Duncan once said that people will buy when they want to buy, not when you want to sell. So you need to be able to be in their shoes. You need to so the strategy is for you to be able to how do you goad them? How do you motivate them across whatever channels you have available or you have made available to them to be able to, to be willing to buy at the time you are willing to sell. That's the way you can actually have a convergence of value, so to speak. Crisis identification, sales leads, number of fans and followers, complaints, competitive information in terms of your competition, new product ideas, size and scope of various issues and concerns, and a whole lot of other things that people use. There's a transformation that has actually taken place, like I probably also mentioned before. Social media is not just being driven merely as a listening tool, just to listen passively, as it were, to what our fans are saying, whether they like us or they dislike us. We're not just looking for enemies or friends, or so to use those words, but we're actually trying to proactively engage our customers. But it's important to note what these two authors once said. They wrote in this book, they said, we have moved from an economy of make and sell to one of listen and serve. We have moved from an economy of make and sell to one of listen and serve. So now, one of the listening are very active and proactive listening tools that I feel that every individual as well as corporate business player will find very critical to their business success is the social media, because it's a widely and wildly accepted and utilized platform. When you listen, then you must be willing to evaluate and monitor and measure the kind of feedbacks you get from such interactions and be able to apply it back into your business to redo what probably you need to redo and serve them much better. Quick things, a few things about strategy. It is not just going into the buzzword, oh, social media, everybody is doing it, then we want to do it. If you are a financial industry, for example, you know that, banks are not really pretty much everybody's friend. Somebody used to say that really banks, if nobody cares how your bank really is, as long as they can actually get credit from you. But if people want to place money in your bank, they will be very, very critical about the nitty-gritty of how good your services, your responsiveness, and all of those little things are. But when it comes to getting credit, they don't care whether you have good service or not. If you can deliver on their credit expectations, you are a good bank. But you see, you cannot just, because of some of those sentiments, jump into a social media plan without having a strategy. What is our objective? What do we want to achieve? Who are the target audience, our target customers we want to be able to interface with? Because even within the social media, like we appreciate, there's so many different platforms, from Facebook to LinkedIn, to Twitter, to YouTube, and several one of them. You need to know within your local operating environment which one is most relevant to your customers, not just what you prefer, because at the end of the day, it's about your customers. Strategy is about the choices you make, about the markets where you want to operate, which products you want to and I mean, probably deploy, and the activities you want to engage in, and how you want to do them. Finding the right issues and then focusing on them is, with all senior management attention, is the only way forward in business today. That's a quotation from a professor at the business school in the USA. Now, this probably I'm hoping that public therapy will make this available. I know that a couple of people have, in extremely simplified form, tried to do, should I say, with much fewer words and a lot of pictures and videos, try to share with us ideas about how to go about our CRM strategy, our social media strategy. But I deliberately make this a bit detailed because really and truly, if you are involved in the process of engaging an organization that never before now had a social media strategy, if you were to be like the project champion or the project manager for your organization, you really need to think in clinical details about some of these points I've actually made here, about how to actually drive or initiate, implement and run sustainably a successful social media strategy. And these are part of the things that my organization did run with. And it starts with the fact that you make sure that you build an enterprise-wide, in other words, throughout your organization, everybody that matters buy into this strategy from top to bottom. You need to engage your target customers within the organization as well as outside the organization, your customers that are patronizing you. By customers now, I mean that all the stakeholders within your organization, the people, the back office, the back office and all of the people that are involved, you need to be able to manage them so that everybody that is going to be involved in managing appropriate responses to issues that will come up, you need to actually work with them at the initial stage of this strategy. Then for a retail bank, actually is more ideal for a retail bank of some other information sensitive organizations. It might be much critical for you to have a centralized point from where you manage your social media interactions. In other words, it's not just that everybody that has a system or an access to a mobile device in the organization just goes responding in different and divergent ways to customers. You must probably, it's advisable maybe your contact center or your customer care, because they are responsible for engaging or interacting with your customers. Then you must have, like our moderators mentioned much earlier, you must have very measurable metrics to actually measure the effectiveness, the efficiency of these interactions, the effectiveness in terms of quality, as well as the return on investment for your organization. Depending on to what extent you want to go, you may be able to find out whether you need to get sophisticated by needing some analytics or buying some solutions to actually make this work, or probably you just manually, just like the way you probably take your phone calls, depending on the number of people you interact with on your social media platform, whether you're going to be interacting with them and measuring that interaction and the feedbacks in a manual way, or probably going to deploy some solutions or analytics. Imperatives for the social media strategy: the customer is very important. This is where they live, and because this is where they live, this is where they interact and they speak every now and then. If you need to understand who your customers are, so that you probably will not be selling shoes to a man that doesn't have legs, you need to hear them well on the social media platform. Enormous impact on the word of mouth, or word of touch, or word of mouse. You know that much more than I can say. Tremendous cross-sell opportunities that are available on social media. A couple of other opportunities that you can generate from the social media. Very quickly, as a round-off, some critical tips for your social media strategy. For a retail bank, for example, and for any organization that needs, in a very consistent way, maybe you are maybe a law firm or some other organizations where consistency and sensitivity of information is very critical, you need to ensure that there's a proper integration of data. Whatever is said across one channel is consistently understood. You don't have to repeat the same information. You redirect a particular dialogue from maybe because of the sensitivity from a social media platform to an email, and then probably you have to escalate to a point of meeting physically with senior management and the client in question. You also must ensure that at the point when there's a physical meeting, the customer in question does not have to start repeating his story all afresh. There's a proper, everybody sees what is being said constantly. You must gain and enhance customer insight, even if it means affordably deploying analytics, deliver consistent brand multi-channel experience. You must adhere to certain service levels, which is also what, if you have created this on other channels, it is important that you also create this on the social media channel or platform. How long, should be our customers' expectation when it comes to interacting with us as an organization on social media? It's going to take a week, a day, an hour, 6 hours. How soon can they get what kind of responses? What kind of responses have to be taken beyond the minimum basic? Then the last one I probably want to emphasize is this particular one. You must ensure compliance with confidentiality about what is called sensitive authentication data, because of the nature of banking. I don't want her to know what his own banking transactions really are. Even though I'm dialoguing with you on the Facebook of the organization, there are certain sensitive things I cannot afford to disseminate on that particular platform, and that may apply to some other organizations. On a last note, as you can see, I would say that a study was done about 3 years ago to measure why customers or people will really want to engage a bank or a financial services provider. And actually, it applies in a very a significant way to a couple of other organizations also. And it was realized that the most dominant set of concerns have to do with responsiveness and reliability. Responsiveness and reliability. Now, it is important for you to know and understand your customers, the credibility of your organization, of your brand, your management structure, your shareholding, all of those, the ambience of your offices. They are very good. But these two things are very critical, regardless of your channel, whether social media, face-to-face, contact center, whatever platform. Responsiveness and reliability. This is very key, and we must take note of this in our social media engagement. Probably you just want, I know that we should be hungry by now again after the lunch, so probably just want to serve you a very quick pizza. Abraham Maslow said this. He says, if you only have a hammer, you tend to see every problem as a nail. Mark Twain said, a man who carries a cat by the tail learns something that he can learn in no other way. Now, just think about this with respect to your deploying your social media or some other kind of strategy in your organization. If the things you take as not important at all, if you take them loosely, when they bite you back, they will cost you a lot more. That's what Mark Twain is trying to say. Second, last one, humanity has the stars in its future, and that future is too important to be lost under the burden of juvenile folly or ignorant superstition. And lastly, vision without action is a dream. Is your social media strategy, is it just a mere daydreaming, or you want to take action because action without vision is simply passing the time, but action with vision is making a positive difference. In a time, I want you to remember as I leave here, in a time of drastic change, it is the learners who inherit the future. If you think your organization has learned all that needs to be learned, you are mistaken. My organization, Oceanic Bank, merged recently with a most dominant African bank, the most dominant bank in Africa, EcoBank, and the integration process was managed. I was leading the team that was managing the social media strategy on this platform, and you can imagine the emotions that goes with brand preferences when it comes to mergers and acquisition. Thank you. I hope that we will take a couple of things away from today. God bless you.
Thank you very much.